Well, g'day and welcome along to another episode of MuzoHub. This is episode number 23, which is the third in our new series of MuzoHub. And we'd like to thank everybody for their support. It's been fantastic, everybody getting behind us. And we're very excited tonight because we've got a special guest. Every week's a special guest, but tonight's a bit of a celebrity guest. And we'll talk about that in just a few moments. Now, if you'd like to become a guest on MuzoHub, it's quite easy. Just go to our website, which is muzohub.tv, and on the front page, on the top, you'll see guest request. Just click on that, and we'll get straight back to you, and hopefully you'll become a guest on MuzoHub really soon. We've got about 3 or 4 people lined up already, but we're looking for a lot more. Now, back to our special guest this week. We had the pleasure of going along to Bendigo Blues and Roots, one of their events this weekend, or a few of their events actually. And congratulations to Colin Thompson and his team on a wonderfully run event again, Bendigo Blues and Roots. If you haven't been along to Bendigo Blues and Roots, make sure you put in your calendar for this time next year. Anyway, we went along to Alumbra Theatre in Bendigo, and fantastic new theatre we have in Bendigo. And we had quite a fantastic lineup on Saturday night, and the main act was Mr. Shane Howard, of ex lead singer of Goanna, and a lot of solo work since. And as you all know, if you know anything about Shane Howard, very talented man, but also you'll get to know him in this little interview. Very nice person to deal with. So without further ado, here we go with Shane Howard. Shane, welcome along to MuzoHub. It's a great pleasure to have you on board tonight to have a little bit of a chat with us about your music career.
No worries.
And we'll go right into the questions. A bit of background. What was your first memory of music? And so where did it all start from, your first memory of music?
Wow, I mean, look, I was born into a family. My mother played piano and sang, so I was born into a musical family, and we couldn't dodge it really. We sang as a family. There were 7 kids. We all sang as a family around southwest Victoria, where I grew up. Never for money much, in those early days. It was just a community thing we did.
Yeah, and how did you, when did you first start singing or playing an instrument or anything?
My brother got a really bad catalogue guitar for Christmas one year, and I would only been very young, but it was kind of fascinating because there weren't a lot of guitars around, and pianos were a thing, but this was a new thing. And then we started to see Peter, Paul and Mary, and all the folk stuff coming out of America, I guess. And then I've eventually cornered that guitar off my brother. And the action was like about the strings were this far off the fretboard, black diamond strings, all like fencing wire.
Yeah. And so that first instrument, have you still got it?
No way. I think it fell to pieces of its own free will. It was a pretty raggedy thing. My brother eventually got a better guitar, and then I inherited that one. But it did good service for a good 7 years.
And so you say about your family, are they still all involved in music? I know there's at least a couple of them are.
Yeah, well, my brother Damien and my sister Marcia, of course, Marcia was in Goanna with me.
Yep.
They're still involved, still do their music. So everyone still sings and plays. All my kids sing and play, but I think they were smart enough to work out that it was a bad career move.
So as a family, do you still get together very often and play music, or is it more just to catch up now?
Usually at family functions or special occasions. But it is interesting because when you get together, I'm just the big brother, and they take everything falls back into what you did when you were kids. I'm the backer, and I sing harmonies, and my brother, who's got a great voice, actually probably the best voice of a lot of us, he leads. So it's a very different dynamic when we're all together. It's got nothing to do with your professional career. It's our family business.
Tell us about your first public gig. Do you recall that?
Well, if I think about the first thing I did in public, I I sang at my school, which was in a little town called Dennington, just outside of Warrnambool, in about grade 6, and I played Blowing in the Wind, and the teacher, who was a nun, she said we had to go into Warrnambool then, which was the big town.
Big smoke.
And we went and visited St Joseph's School there, which was a big school compared to our little rural school. And I had to sing that song, I had to sing Blowing in the Wind there. So I guess that was probably the first, like, where there's probably 150 people and you've actually got to just stand up and sing a song and deliver it.
Do you recall, was it nerves and a buzz or out of it?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I told you I carry the memory of it, the detail of it. But I mean, look, we were singing as a family, so it was such a natural thing to do. But it was still, to get up on your own was pretty nerve-wracking, and I was pretty much a shy kind of kid, really. So, yeah, it was terrifying and exhilarating, I guess, all at once.
So, moving into Goanna and that era, how did that all form? Did you have other bands before Goanna, or? Yeah,
I was. My world was a folk world, really, an acoustic world. So, I love the Beatles, I love all that rock and roll stuff too. But where would you get a band from? Where I was growing up, it was hard to find people. Yeah, so it wasn't until I moved to Geelong, then in the 70s, and I spent a bit of time in Melbourne and hung around all the folk clubs, and then went back, lived in Geelong, and met a few guys. We put a band together. It was originally called the Ectoplasmic Manifestation Concert Band, and then
I can see why it was shortened.
it became Avalanche, and then it became it became the Goanna Band.
Yeah. When you write songs, how do you go about that? Is there a procedure, or it just happens, or is it?
You know, I don't think there's any formula. I really don't. I've tried to track it sometimes. And the closest I can get is, I think there's a phrase that you have and it has a melody, and it's a group of words and it has a melody or a line, and then you grow it like a culture, like a virus, out from there, and it kind of expands. I think that's the best way I can describe it, but they're all different. Sometimes you come at it from the words, sometimes you come at it from a melody, but most of the time it's both together. And, you know, poetry is one thing and writing music is another thing, but songwriting is another thing again. It's a different kind of art form.
Do you write solo, or do you co-write with people at all?
I used to write solo, you know, in the early days, and then there were a few co-writes along the way, but these days I do a lot of co-writing. I'm working with Udamo, Marika, a young fella from Arnhem Land, and Andy Alberts, Aboriginal singer-songwriter from down home where I grew up. Particularly when you're dealing with cultural material, I think it's better to work with people who are the custodians of that stuff. And sometimes I love beautiful singer-songwriter Elise Leana from Queensland. We did some writing together too. But yeah, a lot of co-writes.
Excellent.
Not by design, things unfold.
Over the years.
Working with Casey Chambers on at the moment.
So with your, what are you up to currently? Have you just released an album? Was that right? Or?
Yeah, the last record was a thing called Deeper South, which we did pretty much as a trio.
Okay.
And Ewan and John, who were playing with me here in Bendigo, the three of us formed that trio, but you know, every now and then we open it out and we bring the rhythm section in, and Bruce Ames on keyboards and didgeridoo, and expand it, and singers, and it's not so much bigger production. And then it's time for another record, so we're about to launch into that. But yeah, you're constantly working. I just did a song with John Schumann that we did together. And you know, if you'd asked me 12 months ago, it wasn't on the radar. So stuff keeps unfolding and evolving, and the world is in such a terrible sort of state at the moment that it calls for calls for questioning songs.
Good songwriting period sort of thing, even though it's a bad
Yeah,
period.
well, it's where the history of the world gets written by the conquerors, and then the songwriters and the folk music tells the real story from the people's perspective. You know? So we have to keep them honest.
Can you describe, in your heart, the magic of music? Why do you play? What is it about music?
There's an English guy, I forget his name now because I'm old and my brain's gone soft, but Nick, and he said to me once, music is how humans flock.
Okay.
And I think that's a really lovely description. You know, when you're playing with a band, you're turning within a hundredth of a second. Your timing is that close together. So we're all turning together. You know, we're all moving, and sometimes just instinctively and intuitively. What do I love about it? When you're on stage and when you're playing music, not even on stage, when you're playing music, it's almost like there's no room in your brain for anything else. The world, everything else dissolves and dissipates, and you're totally in that moment. It's the most zen, I think, exercise you can do in a way, and there are beautiful moments within that, whether it's a trad Irish music session or a rockin' band or a folk trio or whatever, where you're right there in the zone together. And it's a very social art form in that sense. And things are moving and turning together in such fine detail. It's a pretty amazing. For me, it's one of the finest skills I think that humans have. And of course, neuroscience now shows that the listening to music really engages an enormous amount of the brain. And playing music pretty much lights up the entire brain. So it's a great art form.
Just turning to the Bendigo Blues and Roots, I don't know whether you've had much chance to have a look around town, but I think it's a great event for Bendigo. What's your thoughts on the way it's laid out and that, with all the different venues and things?
Well, it's pretty amazing when you realise the scale of what's going on. And 7 years down the track, it's really finding its feet now. Beautiful venues, beautiful production, everything. In the 70s, I ended up with hanging out with a lot of Bendigo crew when I was young, in my formative years, and they were all musos. There were a lot of musicians from Bendigo, the Brennans and the Harringtons and Hughes and that. So I used to come up with them a lot to Bendigo, Morong, and so Bendigo for me was always associated as a kind of music town, and so this feels really natural for it to be to have this kind of a blues and roots festival here. So long may it run.
Excellent. All right, thanks very much, Shane. Thanks for joining us. And I understand you're going to play a little song for us now.
Well, under coercion.
Under coercion.
Absolutely.
Thank you. What's the name of the song? What can you tell us about it?
Well, you talked about co-writing.
Yeah.
I did a tour with Carole King some years ago, and she had the A-Team out touring with her, and her drummer was Russ Kunkel. He's on probably 2/3 of your record collection or mine or whatever. The A-grade drummer from Los Angeles. Play with Dylan, play with everyone. James Taylor. But he used to come down and watch me on the side of stage, and we got talking one night. We were in the bar of the hotel afterwards, and I was talking about this notion of the Sufi notion that when you die, you're weighed on the scales, your heart's weighed with a feather, and if it's as light as a feather, it'll ascend. And he said, "Man, that's a beautiful concept. You should write a song about that." And I said, "Well, let's do it now." So we co-wrote.
What's the name of the song?
It's called "You're the Love."
When they weigh my heart, I hope it's light, that the rhythm's true, see my heart. I hope it's bright, still beating strong in the ascending flight. 'Cause you're the light, you are the love I move toward. Help me rise above this weary world as it ebbs and flows, carries our little dreams as we come and go. This life a dream, through every part of it, all the love and loss deep in the heart of it. You're the light, you are the love I move toward. Help me rise above. Time moves on, roll a stone uphill. I'll try to find the strength, if you can find the will for love, for love. Making our way back home like an ocean wave empties into foam. For the dark